Want to get cornholed? Well, Capcom has a game right here. Now, Resident Evil 3 is a remake. You know, Resident Evil in general is something I look forward to. I'm a Resident Evil fan, okay? I play these games, you know, since I was a little kid and shit. Now, anytime a remake comes out, my butthole gets a little puckered. Now, that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I am not. I just want to say I had fun playing it, but it ain't worth $60, let me tell you. Now, that being said, I'm going to go into a little history lesson. With a lot of these remakes, I end up playing the original anyways, because it takes you, what, like 3-4 hours to finish them at this point, if you know what you're doing. I got RE3 on the original PlayStation 1 and decided, you know what, let's check it out and let's play it. And I didn't really like it. Now, if you know about the history of RE3, RE3 was effectively just a spin-off game for RE2 because they were like, shit, man, Resident Evil 2 selling like hotcakes. How do we sell another game? Well, they took this other Resident Evil spin-off and said, that looks fine enough. Slap RE3 on it and push it to the market. And then Resident Evil 3 got released, and even then people said, yeah, it's not as good as 2, which they were right. The game was definitely shorter, the game had less puzzles, the game didn't have 2 campaigns, which, to be fair with you, RE2's multiple campaign stuff is effectively the same game redone anyways, so I don't really hold that as much of an argument. But yeah, it only had 1 campaign. And in general, the game's identity was pretty lackluster. In RE3, it's effectively just Raccoon City Streets, and there are some memorable locations, which got cut out of the remake, by the way. But we'll get to that real quick. Now, playing the original Resident Evil 3, I realized very quickly the tank controls never worked back then, and anybody that defends it needs to understand the tank controls never worked for that game. RE3 was like the first time the Resident Evil franchise really started to go full action. You know, like if you thought RE4 was bad with the action, which it is, RE3 was pretty much all over that with tank controls and some puzzles tossed in. Now, the fact that you have static cameras, tank controls, does not bode well for your action orientation fetish. It doesn't work well. Combine that with an absolute piss-poor dodge mechanic from the original game that I still can never master, and I probably never will. It doesn't really play all that well. Now, that being said, I did go through RE3, and for the most part, I was, you know, it was okay. It was a Resident Evil game, it's fine, but it's nothing to write home about. The problem is the original Resident Evil, as far as I played it, the RE3, never added anything to the whole storyline anyways. And this is why I was excited about Remake RE3, because I was like, if there's any time to fix your mistakes in a game, it is this. And boy, did they let us down a little bit. Now, RE3 Remake, I'll give the positives of it. It looks very well. I think if I was to play any version of Resident Evil 3, it would be this one, okay? So it wins that badge. The remake is, in my opinion, I wouldn't say better, it's more playable than the original, if I'm going to have to throw it out there. It looks really nice, it plays really nice, it plays very smooth. The gunplay is solid, and for a combat-oriented Resident Evil, the new gameplay, the over-the-shoulder RE2 Remake gameplay, works so well for the Resident Evil 3 Remake that it's why I prefer playing this over the original. Now, story-wise, things have been definitely rearranged. If you play the original game, it pretty much cuts out the first hour, I would say. Now, there's going to be spoilers in the video. I notified you that in the beginning. But the spoiler here that I'm going to put out the most is the first hour of RE3 Remake gameplay is fucking different. It's so dramatically different. The way you see Brad, the exploration of the streets, the moment you meet Carlos, it's like the first hour of the game was just fucking cut out. They cut it out and they just rewrote, replaced, and effectively they put you into, I would say, a quarter of the game right in the beginning. Okay, so by the time you get to the subway in the original game, that's all been rewritten and cut out. And parts of the game, like the police station, have been completely replaced. For instance, in the original game, Jill goes to the police station. In the new version, Carlos goes to the police station, which I'm not against, you know, but you don't play as Jill in the police station. You play as only Carlos in the police station. Jill's police station segment, cut out and gone. Which, to be honest with you, didn't add too much to the game anyways, save for one cutscene, but it was cut out and removed entirely. Now, there are elements of this that permeate through the entire game. Now, this is specifically towards the latter half. By the latter half of the game, you end up going to a place called the Clock Tower, which is probably the only place in RE3 where the puzzle elements in the original came out. And it was actually a pretty cool moment of the game. I was excited to get to it in Remake. Cut out and gone. You don't go to the clock tower. You go outside the clock tower for one boss battle. That's it. The park, which I'm glad it was cut out anyways, because that place sucked ass, but that's cut out. The factory at the end is cut out and replaced with an entirely different location. But I'm kind of okay with that. There are moments of this game, I would say 40% of the locations from the original game are gone. They are gone, and they won't be coming back. Now, the puzzles in this version of the game have been reduced from the original, which are even further reduced from the RE2 remake. So if you're one of those puzzle Resident Evil lovers, that's pretty much been cut out of the game. The puzzles are not there. In fact, the only memorable puzzle I know is when you're setting up subway lines, and that's okay, I guess. The other ones are just grab item and unlock this and follow that rabbit hole and whatever, which just doesn't bode really well if you're into the puzzle aspect of Resident Evil as well. So that being said, I know I listed a lot of negatives, but to be fair with you, I still had a fun time going through it. And that's because I knew what to expect from RE3 Remake. I knew that I was going to go in for the combat, I knew that I was going to go in for the action, I knew that I was going in not for a puzzle game, but for rather an escape game. And this is where the big thing comes out to me, and that's fucking Nemesis. You notice how in the box, like, they don't have RE3 Nemesis like they did the original? Like, Nemesis doesn't exist anywhere. Like, you see his little face up here, but the Nemesis subtitle is gone. You wanna know why that is? Because Nemesis pretty much doesn't fucking exist in this game, really. Now, I see a lot of reviews on the internet where people have these rose-tinted glasses of, like, Nemesis from the original RE3. I'm just gonna burst your bubble. Motherfucker was never random. He was always scripted. You ever notice how he showed up whenever you did, like, a key task or you got a key item? Yeah, he shows up in scripted moments of the game. He only appears dynamic because they do a pretty good job of hiding it. In this game, the only time Nemesis is dynamic and he follows you is like 20 to 30 minutes of the game. That's it. After then, he becomes somebody you just run away from. So 20 to 30 minutes of this game, Nemesis follows you. And it's kind of a bullshit method of following you too. And to be fair, in the original, Resident Evil 2 Remake, Mr. X follows you around, a character that wasn't really there in the original game anyways. He's more prominent in the remake. But again, Mr. X only follows you for, I would say, an hour and a half of RE2 Remake gameplay. Nemesis follows you for even less of that. But in this version, they give you so much explosives, so many weapons, even on the harder difficulty, that downing Nemesis is still easy. Chuck a grenade or two at him, he dies, he drops a weapon part for you to upgrade from, and bam, you can grab it and run away. He is no threat, really, in Resident Evil 3 Remake. Now, the moments he follows you after the first 20-30 minutes, you know the demo location that we played? Yeah, after you leave that, he literally shows up for scripted segments. And it's segments that are kind of like RE6, you know when you're running away in Jake and Cherry's campaign? That's literally it. He just shows up with a weapon and he's like, stores, and he starts firing at you and you just gotta run away. That's it, that's all it is. But what is cool are the boss battles. Bro, the boss battles in this game make the original look like a fucking Fisher-Price. It's so much better in this game, so much better. The boss battles when you're fighting Nemesis are just insane. Like, I'm not gonna spoil it for you, but they are some of the most, like, you know, they are probably the best boss battles in the remake history out there, period. Probably in the best Resident Evil, just putting it out there. So I enjoyed them. You know, the boss battles were cool. The chase segments with Nemesis were still fairly cool. And the thing is, I do ultimately prefer this version of Nemesis anyways, because in the original, people really have rose-tinted glasses, but it's just not right. Fighting original Nemesis in RE3 was more of a nuisance because of the tank controls and just his appearance to show up again when you picked up key items anyways. This version of Nemesis, I think, is more fair, more visceral, and I generally like him a little bit more than the original anyway. So yeah, it's definitely not what I expected. He's definitely less of a presence, I would say, but whenever he shows up, it was generally better than the original. Now, ultimately, we have to get down to really what's the meat and potatoes of this. It's a fine game. I've actually enjoyed RE3 Remake. I finished it. My playthrough took 4 hours. Okay? That's 4 hours of me just playing the game, first try, and I beat it. Now, that's not to say that it's bad, but that includes cutscene time. That includes a lot of other shit. 4 hours to finish this game is what happened. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that it is very linear. Like, compared to like the other two like remakes, you know, RE2 Remake and RE1 Remake, there's a lot of puzzles and backtracking in places you have to go back and forth. With RE3, the only downside really is the puzzles are non-existent, and whenever they try to introduce like a puzzle location, it's so generically linear. For instance, in the beginning, you go to the power station, and you have to set a power for the subway. Now, they give you a maze location in this version of the game, and they introduce these parasites that you have to use green herbs to push out from. That mechanic of gameplay only lasts for that location, and that location only lasts for 10 minutes. 5 minutes, actually. 10 minutes probably because I was like dicking around looking at the textures. Why? It's because they make it look like a maze, but it's just a fucking linear line. So you're going down a path, and you're just like opening up, you're opening up like the generators, and that's it. Like, you follow a path, you go up a ladder, you go down a ladder, you follow a generic path, and you're done. And that place can pretty much be appropriated for like, that whole style can be appropriated for like 75% of the gameplay or locations. So that's my downside for it. Like, when I expected puzzles, I kind of expected, puzzles in like sort of branching locations, like intricate locations like police station in RE3, for instance, or RE2 in instance. You don't really get that here. You don't. It just doesn't happen. You find a key. You look at the key. And what do you do with the key? The key only works in one door, and then you throw away the key. Again, the style of it is so linear. Even the intricate locations, like the hospital when you're playing as Carlos, is pretty fucking linear. So you get what I'm saying? It's just the exploration, the puzzle elements of RE3 are just not there. Okay, they've been cut down and they've been severely reduced. But I did still enjoy it. It was fun to go into these locations and browse around, but when you compare it to classic Resident Evil, it's definitely a full shift. Now, 4 hours of game time for the first playthrough is pretty bad. And I gotta be real with you, that's the only thing that holds up the $60 price tag for this game. Wait until it goes on sale. It's a good game. But guys, there's just one campaign. Yes, there's multiple difficulty modes, but it's one campaign, and your first playthrough, if you know what you're doing, if you've got a pulse inside your body, it is probably the shortest running Resident Evil game. That is with the story and the cutscenes to it as well. And that's my biggest thing too. The story is still as useless as the original RE3 Nemesis. When you played RE3 Nemesis, you can completely skip that game and go into 4, 5, 6, 7 without ever needing it. The thing with the original Resident Evil 3 is that it's basically a game that runs before, after, and parallel to RE2. What I was hoping out of Resident Evil 3 is we would understand more about Umbrella, the story, the Raccoon City incident. You never get that in this game. And I was hoping the remake would greatly expand upon Umbrella's story, which it kind of does, but it's nothing to the extent of what you matter. It's not, it doesn't retcon anything. It doesn't really build upon anything worth mentioning. It would be better if they built this game so it could tie into the overarching story of RE4 and Umbrella's fall and all that stuff even more carefully, but they don't do it. They kind of like touch it, but they never really go all the way into it, which is a downside. Now, the thing that also gets to me is this game is $60, partially because Capcom believes that we're going to play this Resident Evil Resistance bullshit, this multiplayer game that they have. It's so dead in the water, even by Capcom standards, that they don't even force you to install it when you put the disc in. Like, I put the disc in, it didn't even give me it said, hey, if you just want RE3, we know exactly what you want, just install that and fuck the multiplayer. The multiplayer, as much as I've played the beta on Xbox One, it is not worth writing home about. It's really not worth it. It's sort of like Dead by Daylight, but with the RE twist. What kind of weirds me out is this game has a lot of cut content, not just from the single player, but even the mercenaries got removed out completely. This multiplayer would have been good if they just fucking remade Outbreak. Ladies and gentlemen, do I have to fucking have a job at Capcom to tell these numbnuts, fuck your multiplayer resistance shit. Just remake Outbreak File 1 and 2 from PS2. You don't know what that is? Let Muda give you a fucking history lesson. It's basically the Resident Evil survival horror gameplay, but with your homies, with your buddies. You can connect with each other and play scenarios out like an actual Resident Evil single-player campaign with your buddies. That's fun. That's great. There's a whole community of people doing that now. Capcom didn't capitalize on it. Fuck your multiplayer. Just give us co-op Resident Evil puzzle and fighting scenarios and we would have eaten that shit up. I was surprised that they didn't do that. It would have been better for them to just remake Outbreak. That's a lot of fucking content right there. That is a lot of replayable content right there. It is more fun to play that 4-player co-op scenarios with my buddies than it is to play 4 versus 1 bullshit multiplayer that's going to get old in about 40 minutes anyways. So again, it's a missed opportunity. And I guess in closing thoughts, RE3 Remake is a fine game, but when it drops down to $30 is when you should fucking pick it up. Not for a full 60, because for a full 60, you're getting a 4-hour campaign. Yes, it's replayable. You can finish it under 2 hours for the S rank, fine. You can play it on a harder difficulty, fine. There's even a shop after you beat it where you can buy infinite ammo and stuff, and that's fine. But let me tell you, that is just not worth 60 by today's standards. Good game, they're just overcharging the fuck out of it. So wait when it's on sale is what I'd say. There's a lot of other games out right now. Fuck, go get Persona 5 Royale. It's the same price, and you'll get like 100 times more hours of gameplay out of it anyways. This is me, Mutahar, and if you like what you saw, please like, comment, and subscribe. Dislike it if you dislike it. I'm passionate about RE3. I wanted to talk about it. I'm conflicted with this game, but that's my brutally honest fucking review for it. This is me, Muta, and I am out.